Hello, it's Jamela, the social services maven, and you have come to this page because either you're a caseworker, you want to become a caseworker, you're a social worker, but you just work in the human services industry, and I'm here to help you learn how to navigate and create a healthy and self-made career. So there's some interesting things that are happening right now outside of post-pandemic economic fallout that is occurring across the nation. And they're the two coins of post-pandemic. Today I want to really talk about the post-pandemic of the influx of immigrants that are happening with what's happening in Haiti. I think there's a little bit personally shadiness as I'm listening to NPR this morning. All the immigrants from Haiti are speaking Spanish. I think that they are super Dominican and they are being received under the guise of being Haitian and the catastrophes that have been happening in that country for generations. But what stood out to me was the immigrants were coming mostly from southern Mexico, and they were coming in, I could be wrong, I think the Rio Grande into Texas, and families were able to come in first. And there was an individual on there who was coming over with himself, his wife, and his 3-year-old daughter, and he had family in Houston, and he was going to meet his family in Houston. So the reporter stated, how were they able to navigate? It was pretty strategically well done. There were buses coming from the Rio Grande into the border. How were they able to communicate how to link up? And the reporter stated that they were using social media and using the phone. So if they're using these things, they got internet access, they have somewhat of a quality phone, there's some type of money somewhere. So they're not that much of that's why I'm calling them an immigrant. They're not running from political tyranny of Haiti since they've lost their president. But why I believe this is important is for those of us who work in the human services industry. They're going to begin accessing the systematic needs of food stamps, of general relief. Here in California, there's refugee relief. There is Medicare, Medi-Cal that they can get for free. You don't have to be documented for that. Child care and housing, affordable housing. In the state of California, you do not have to be documented to receive Section 8 housing, especially if you come in under homelessness. So what type of case worker do you need to be to work with a couple of things right now, a couple of conditions that this group of people are going to have now? So there's going to be the condition of just being a refugee, not having anything, starting over with a young family. There's going to be a possibility of a stint of homelessness, and thus a stint of homelessness, there's going to be PTSD connected to that. You're going to have PTSD if you sleep on the streets, or some form of depression. And then fourth, what type of communicable diseases are they bringing in, or pre-existing conditions that they may have that needs to be treated by our medical care system? And how are you as the caseworker going to help them navigate that? How are you going to advocate for them when they are searching for services? So all of these come into us looking at human services, the industry, not just through the lens of what's sold to us of poverty and homelessness and into mental health. Immigrants are a part of that population as well, especially low-income immigrants that are not coming in under education, where they might work, right? They could work great and maybe still have to be in affordable housing, and they might not see their children be the first one. Their children might be the first ones under DACA be able to get a education, either as a trade or within that of the structures of higher education of just regular liberal arts. But This is what's happening, you all, as a human services industry person. These are the populations in which you serve sometimes. You might have no understanding. There have been plenty of times I have had immigrants come in from the Arab world who were fleeing their spouses because they were about to be murdered. And they spoke English and they knew how to manipulate the system, or they knew how to have the system help them. Because if you're fleeing somebody under, under domestic violence, you are definitely making the best choice to leave that person. But this influx, and then the people who are coming in from Afghanistan, if you were able to catch their airplane first from the Taliban, you here. There's a lot happening that's about to enter into the human services industry, and where's the skill set at? So it's going to become employees, the caseworker, who is working based off of their heart and not being paid efficiently, not being trade efficiently or sufficiently. And how do you balance that when you're looking for a job? What do you need to ask for? I would say one thing: if you have a bachelor's degree, ask for a little bit of above what they're offering you. What is the base, what is the bid, and what is the highest? With a bachelor's degree with some volunteer experience, I would ask for the base, because you don't have the real world experience yet. You do not have the necessary skill set to navigate the webs of the industry of human service. It is a big old web, you all, trying to go through all of these things. That's one. If you're mid-level, you have like 4 or 5 years, maybe less, I would say 2 years under your belt, ask for mid. Ask for, depending upon where you're at, $26. The amount of work that you're going to have to do with stabilizing them in a shelter or in short-term residential housing, and then pursuing Section 8. And what I have seen in my experience, if they're not a senior pursuing affordable housing, they are more than likely going to get a low income tax credit building, which means that they are not necessarily getting federal funding under Section 8 PBV vouchers as much as they are getting a bond. We'll talk about that in another conversation about low income tax credit. So I want you to begin looking at the news. Look at the news, and that way you can articulate a little bit better in your interviews, as when they ask you with no experience, how would you handle this situation if you don't have a point of reference, or if you do have a historical reference of working with this population. I have worked with immigrants for a lot of years. It's because I live in California, but also because I live especially living in the Bay Area, I live in a state where you are protected as an immigrant. It's a sanctuary city. But those that are in Texas, and these immigrants who might be coming in with a pre-existing mental health diagnosis, they're going to be living in Travis County jail system. And we're going to be paying for it, and they're going to be getting some cheap labor out of them. Because Texas is going to find a way, baby. They're going to find a way to get some free labor. But I want you all to begin thinking about these things and how it's showing up, how human services is showing up, where we might not always look at it, because everybody watches Precious and they want to be the Mariah Carey. And that's true. Sometimes you're going to look like Mariah Carey in your field, but you don't always have to look like Mariah Carey in your field. You can bring a balance into your career and say, this is what I know, and this is where I'm going to step back away from, and it's going to be okay. Because it goes back to that toxicity that I told you about in the last video, that codependent behaviors that pop up in the human service industries, that you have to save people. And that is not your responsibility to save anyone from themselves. Human beings are powerful, and they are more than capable of changing their lives if they want to. I have seen it before. I have seen people who have been homeless for 25 years, who have a home and end up getting a job at Walmart and becoming a manager. They become extremely successful. So you don't put that in your mind as a caseworker or a social worker that you have to become a mortarer for the industry. It's not necessary. As always, caseworkers are needed. I need you all to step it up. I need you all to get the tools needed. I'm hoping that I help guide some thoughts in your mind and help you navigate the system. Email me at socialservicesmaven@gmail.com if you have any questions, if you need me to look over your resume, if you want to interview me for school. I'll be more than happy to help you. Bye-bye.